Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. In this video, I'm doing a garden tour with my friend Jeremy Schmidt. You guys have seen a video at this point on a big stone project he has going on over here, which you've gotten pretty far along. They'll see. I'll put a little video snippet up right now so you can see where we are. I think we'll come back maybe in a week and a half when you have a little more of the planting done.
Yeah.
And we'll wrap that video up.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, but today we're going to walk through some of the plants that are in his landscape. Again, this is April 16th, and we've had some cool nights here and there, so everything's not, it looks great, but it's not, everything's not awake quite yet.
The winter weeds are awake. They're looking great.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, the henbit chickweed
Oh,
invasion.
yeah, it's all here.
Right, yeah, you've got them all. You've got them all. Yeah, but you've also got some gorgeous pieces in this landscape. Can you talk about these trees and how you had...
Yeah, this is the Weeping Sarracenia pendulum, I think, is the clone on this one. These have been here for 10 years. Great story behind them. One of my friends, when I requested the Sarracenia, he was in Ohio with his full-size truck. So he actually got to a nursery in Ohio, and the price was right, and uncovered, he drove them all the way back from Ohio, and they were pretty beat up. But
right.
They're just great. They've recovered well. And this is one of those things where I wanted something I knew was going to take a long time to really develop into what it could be. So I needed to start right away with these things. Certain aspects of the yard were done 10 years ago to really fill in now.
So you've got some evergreens back here, and then you have the weeping trees, and it kind of creates a room between the side garden and this backyard garden?
Yes. The goal was, there's a couple different things I wanted to do originally. One, hide the air handling unit. Which,
gotcha.
From where I'm standing anyway, I can't see it. It's impossible to totally hide it, but that's what the Yuletides do. And then the Sarracenia create a long shaded area where there's full sun at either side. So the way that the eye focuses on one or the other, it creates a transition where it blurs what's at the other end. And where, some people would put up a big privacy fence and you open a gate and you're through it, or a screening hedge, which is another great option where it's all or nothing. Here, it kind of does the same thing, but you have to walk through it for 30 or 40 feet to get through to the other side. And then you've got some variegated Daphne under here. You want to come a little closer, Steph, and we might point out a couple things that are under here. There's a variegated Daphne, the Trillium, which I know you have quite a collection of Trillium. I love Trillium.
Here.
Got a few weeds as well.
Okay, there you go. That's okay. It's that time of year.
It is.
Like you said. But that's you got the variegated Daphne that look great.
Yeah.
And they bloom probably with the leaves off the trees.
Yes, yeah.
So they get plenty of sun, and then there's some protection.
During
the summertime.
That's one of those types of light that I've learned a lot about in the last few years. A deciduous shade, and so that means all summer long or all winter long. I mean, that's south, so all winter long, this is full baking sun. If there is such a thing in the winter, and so some plants are able to photosynthesize through the cool season. And when they need the shade, they get it. Daphne blooms in February and is an incredible fragrance.
And they got the Trillium back there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's an amazing mix. You do the same thing that I have going, which is which I call drifts of one. So there's occasional thing we'll see that you have 3 or 5, but to hold things together, kind of. Yes.
But I mean, in the Sarracenia, for example, there are 3 of them. But they act as one single entity.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So let's see. Let's move around here. The things like the gardenias will be a little later blooming. The Cuba back there in the shade looks great as a backdrop, and creates this room you've kind of created. On the other side, you can't see. You got to go around there to figure out what's over there.
Kind of see through, and as certain things fill out, I'll be making decisions. Like, for example, the gardenia, I'll probably eventually remove those in favor of something else. But the Acuba continues to look better and better each year because the Sarracenia is getting over the top of it and starting to shade them.
So you got the big Viburnum, macrocephalum, the Chinese snowball back there. Yeah.
I think that might have been actually another Earthworks purchase back in the day.
Right. So that may be one that I grew, and you got an Edgeworthia.
Yeah.
Underneath it. There's another Trillium I see back here.
Yeah,
You've got quite the collection of Trillium, and it is peak Trillium season. Will you talk about a few of the perennials here? You've worked for the big perennial nursery.
I've got a few. This section of the garden, as far as the herbaceous plants it's rather new, and I'm still feeling my way through it. There's an Amsonia hybrid back there that was a throwaway from Plant Delights Nursery, juniper level.
Yeah. It's
a hybrid. I don't remember if it has rigida or one of those species in it. It's really pretty. There were 3 seedlings originally, and I've just kept the one that looks okay. Right. And for now, they fill space. Right now, they look awesome. But then a newer one like Amsonia Tabernet Montana Storm Cloud, which is I believe that's a Tony A. Vent and Hans Hansen of Walter's Gardens, I believe, released this. And this is just an exceptional plant, dark foliage and stems.
And it's got those black stems on it. Oh my gosh, that thing is just gorgeous.
And that's patented. That's widely available now.
Yeah.
But a great landscape plant.
And it's a tidy thing.
It is. It stays small, which is,
right.
I mean, that Amsonia, once the flowers are done, it puts up side shoots from there and continues to grow taller, and will put out just weak, almost aesthetically insignificant flowers as the summer goes on.
Right.
But it gets big. This one stays pretty small.
Nice. Nice. Your teddy bear magnolias here?
Yeah, again, common stuff mixed in with stuff that's not so common, but maybe should be.
Right.
Again, here are 3 plants that I want to act as a single plant for screening, but also just I'd like the 3 trunks to work together rather than just one trunk. It has a different look. It's not vying for attention in the same way that a single trunk would.
Right. It's amazing to me. I mean, this thing hasn't just completely taken over Little Jim. It's just it's got such better color.
I love the backs
on the backs of the leaves. You know, where Little Jim, yes, it's smaller, yes, it's narrow, but you give up so much. You don't give up anything with teddy bear. You still have everything you get from a regular southern magnolia. So the stone is kind of the star in a lot of ways of your landscape. I mean, it does a lot of things for you, allows you to do a lot of things that other people, can't necessarily do in their gardens, elevating things like this. Yeah. You want to talk us through this section that's been here a while?
It's actually, these have only been here a year and a half.
Oh wow!
Some of these rocks, and obviously some rocks were put here yesterday, the new project. But we're talking about drifts of one. Well, I like drifts of rocks, and then and that accommodates masses of plants. It accommodates one plant at a time. And when you put rocks together, you create planting pockets so that even the very small plants that would otherwise get lost in a perennial border, in most perennial gardens, suddenly they have their own little spot to shine. And it's a photo op. If you've got a good macro lens and you can really zoom in on it from distance, you see that diversity, and you see how the rocks are brought to life with the plants that are in them. So I really, really enjoy adding rocks to the landscape. They're not cheap, but at the same time, they're not as expensive, I think, as most people might think.
Well, they're also permanent.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're buying mums in the fall or something like that, if you're making garden purchases go. Yeah.
And they're, I found that the rocks are actually quite, they're drought tolerant. Also in poor drainage situations, they seem pretty unfazed. Full sun, full shade.
Right.
So I plant them really all over the garden because they seem to perform well everywhere I plant them. Here's more of a rocky border. There are a few pockets in there. It's pretty new, so I'm still feeling out what to put in there. A piece of driftwood that happened to be hollow, trying an experiment with some things, and definitely this is an unfinished experiment, but I'm learning from it, what I can put in there, what can tolerate that dry of a situation, but also then the winters. Agaves in a cold winter, probably not, but some cactus I think actually will work in the future as I continue to develop the idea. Paths, raised things. It's always great when you can bring the plants up closer to the eye. So when we're dealing with things that are 4 or 6 inches tall, but you can bring them 2 feet off the ground, they're just that much closer and easier to appreciate. Yeah, so in this dry berm, various kinds of cactus and other xeric plants. This is an unirrigated section for the most part. If it needs a quick shot from the hose, I'll do that. But again, this is less than 2 years old, so some of these cactus are just filling in, and they're also just about to bloom. You can see the flower buds on there. All the new growth is coming from the center, just like that. And so this time of year it kicks out flower buds as well that will bloom here in the next couple of weeks.
Nice. You got your pop of gold color on
yeah, gold sedum, of course.
Yeah.
I can walk over here to the sedum, and one of the really great things about sedum, and perhaps in some cases one of the really difficult things about sedum, is you can just take a handful of it,
right,
and if you want to plant it somewhere, you just throw it in there and maybe step on it a little bit,
right,
and that'll root in.
Yeah, it will.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's all it needs to. I mean, I just transplanted it, just like that. So I might just leave that there for a few weeks, and
right,
we'll see it root in.
It's interesting to me. I haven't grown one of these sedums on a rock like this. It actually comes back up. It's actually facing back up. It's not. I would think it would have been like just falling down, but it appears to actually look like it's climbing upward.
It definitely climbs up. It also spills out over the ground, which I've had to control that some, or just, and I mean, it's nice, you can walk on it to kind of control it, but.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, these are, I mean, it really spreads out. I've got another patch of this same clone on the other side, but it'll cover a rock face. It almost roots right into rock, and they're made to, they've evolved to grow in rocky situations. So they'll actually hold on to a vertical rock face, and you can see that this thing is spread out from where it was planted in the crevices. Oh yeah. And it's able to crawl out on these things, and in a year or so it'll actually cover this, for better or worse. If that's what we want or not.
Nice. So what's next here?
All right, we've got Dicentra. Obviously, most people know bleeding heart. It's one of the favorites where I grew up in the Midwest. It's a favorite down here. But there's one that Plant Delights offers called Dicentra Dolly Sods. And it is a full sun Dicentra. It actually, this gets some irrigation, but it certainly gets full south-facing sun, west-facing sun, and it loves it. In fact, it even put a few seeds out. This is, of course, it's a native plant. I think the Dolly Sods are in Virginia or West Virginia, somewhere up there, and that's where these genetics came from. This is as it is in the wild. This is not an improved plant, so to speak. And you can see it's actually put a couple seedlings in right there. I did not plant those. Those seeds found that spot, and they're like, hey, we like this. This is reminiscent of home. Let's grow here. So I'm really excited to spread more of this great Dicentra around the garden.
Nice. The clematis is just on its way to.
This clematis it's sapphire indigo. Absolutely beautiful flowers. They're just about to pop here in the next couple days. It is not a vine, but I think it is somewhat confused about its identity. Here I'm trying to get it in a situation where it's happiest and has the best presentation. I think it actually will work best if it has more level ground to sprawl out onto and more to compete with. And this is one of those plants that it's not a vine that'll climb everything, but it will kind of grow and then flop out over other things in a way that doesn't outcompete other things. All right, so again, a bunch of rocks together. It creates pockets. Here's one that actually has a little overhanging shade. It faces north. So even though it gets sun from above, there are no trees shading this, I'm able to grow shade plants, even in highlight or almost sun. So here is an Asarum shell shock. This is a Plant Delights, I don't know if they introduced it, but they had it for sale for a little while. And of course, one of the great things about these beautiful evergreen Asarums, one thing most people don't realize until you pull the leaves back, is that they have amazing flowers. And these are down here. I think nature has made them to look like something dead, so that slugs and snails or something like to pollinate them. But I think they're quite beautiful and rather velvety as well. The petals are velvet, but very easy to grow a plant. But anyway, this kind of light allows them to grow and grow well. Back here further, this is actually a cyclamen coum, and you can see the little seed pods now that it's done flowering. And they're kind of like cyclamen are cool because where most plants want to disperse their seeds far and wide, it seems cyclamen, because they grew and they flowered, then they've been successful. And so they'll flower out here, and just like that old-fashioned phone cord that you carry it all the way across the house and it unfurls like this, this actually pulls its seeds back after flowering. And so it'll hold it back close to the plant, and then the pod will open and it will seed close to itself. Fascinating plant, but yeah, it's just the old, like an old phone cord. Of course, trillium. In this garden, it's the obligatory trillium. Bristol briar has trilliums everywhere. And here is, well, that's a cyclamen look-alike. This is actually another kind of a serum right there. It's a rather insignificant flower in comparison to shell-shocked, but a beautiful silver color, looking good. A Selaginella, which would be a cousin to, it's kind of like if you crossed a moss with a fern, that's a Selaginella. And this is one, I believe it's one of our native ones called Burnett. And that'll eventually cover this over in something a little even more luxuriant than moss. I really, really like Selaginella. But
so anyway, you said this pocket was almost a mistake with that one stone.
Oh yeah, so you know, as I'm hoisting this, at the time I would have been in my mid-30s, but hoisting this rock up, it actually slipped. And by that time I had this rock in, and some of these rocks were in, and it actually fell and wedged in and created an overlapping, overhanging rock, and that helped create this shade. And actually now I'm always, as I stack rock here in the Bristol briar, or I stack rock for my clients, I'm actually trying to recreate this combination. Which,
right.
It's weird, you know, so many times stacking rock, and I've stacked between 3 and 4 million pounds of stone in the last 4 years. So many times these natural rocks, as I'm placing them, if I just let them roll into place, I can't imagine how they'll end up, but they end up looking natural. They end up looking like they fit there and have always been there. But if you think about it, in nature, they roll into place all the time.
Or ice moves them.
Yeah, and so yes, ice moves them. They get pushed by forces over time, and they bend and twist and roll and round and weather. So really, as I'm stacking, I'm always looking to just let's let them play their own hand and see how they end up. And here it just happened. Gravity kind of kicked in, and it really worked out well.
We jumped ahead back here to your koi pond, which is pretty good size. How wide is this, you think?
The original dig was about 50 by 40.
Okay, wow.
But now with the water in it, it's about 20 by 30.
Okay, again, using stone
yes.
all the way around it. And so what I want to get folks to see here in this landscape, and of course, again, we're here early, very early in the season, as a lot of it's just waking back up. You've got southwestern Mexico native plants in combination with lots of other types of plants from all over the place, and the thing that allows them to all grow together in this space is this stone.
That's true. That's very true. And the water, actually, because the one of the things that the stone does, as it often does in water gardens, is it hides the liner or the basin, whatever the water is being held in. So here, what we did is the liner is actually back up to 4 feet from the edge of the pond, and backfilled with compost. And so that allows for there to be well-drained soil, a water table, but plant roots can get down and always be in contact with moist soil.
Right.
Regardless of, because we don't really have to irrigate. So in this case, the liner is actually back here.
Right. So these plants are actually able to access this water.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Once they get established, their roots get down there, and in some cases I can actually see where the roots have gone into the water. So again, lots of rocks. We've got always water. We've got good soil. We've got koi. But here is an opportunity where we have so many different factors coming together for putting a lot of different, and when I say different, I mean diverse, things that you wouldn't expect to grow together, growing together. So we have north-facing sun. So behind me is a green giant hedge that's now about 15 feet tall. So really the heat of the day sun is gone, but it gets full sun by definition, several hours of sun a day. So we've got, here's pulmonaria. That actually is more of a shade plant, but it's doing great here with a Mugo pine, with rhodia. So I actually have shade plants growing in what would be considered full sun because we control the kind of sun that it gets. It's cool sun. Plus, because the liner is set back from the pond, the water is always being wicked up into the soil. So it's always being watered from below. So we don't really have to irrigate around this pond. It's self-wicking. And all we have to do is fill the reservoir. And it actually doesn't, the level does not drop that quickly. So we're able, again, pulmonaria, azalea, which is about finished. This amazing native Silene virginica Valentine, Jackson Valentine. That's about to bloom, but it's so floriferous and a true deep red flower. Ajuga, this is Ajuga black scallop, a great patented clone. It actually likes to grow out into the water a little bit. Of course, it's in the mint family, and you wouldn't expect a mint necessarily to grow out in the water, but this one does. Of course, because the water is always nearby, this is a pitcher plant. This is Sarracenia. You don't see the leaves right now because I've cut back last year's leaves to really allow the flower show, which is coming up. Of course, pitcher plant flowers look a little like upside down umbrellas. Very weird. Everything about pitcher plant is weird, and that's one of the reasons that I like it so much. But what you wouldn't expect to see is a pitcher plant, which we think of as a bog plant, growing right next to and literally touching a Mugo pine. And I know, I grew up in the Midwest, and Mugo pines, everybody grew Mugo pine. It was very common as a landscape plant. Down here in the South, Mugo pine don't seem to do as well. Is it that they don't like the heat? As it turns out, and I learned this at Plant Delights from Tony Avent, many Mugo pines are actually native to mountain bogs. So yeah, the air is cooler, but very moist soil, consistently moist. So here, this Mugo pine has been doing great now for 3 years because it's only about 6 inches above the water table. It has always got its feet down into water, but it's not forced to be submerged. And so it kind of is able to call its own shots, make its own decisions about how much water to soak up. And so here it is, absolutely healthy, growing with a pitcher plant, growing with shade plants, and some things that love sun, and always within a couple of feet of koi.
Right, and that farfugium looks beautiful there.
It is. This is farfugium. It's commonly sold as giganteum. A great, of course, a Japanese native, Farfugium japonicum. It loves it here, and this will get much, much bigger. The leaves will get much bigger, very shiny. And again, it's a plant that absolutely loves not necessarily wet soil, but always being to where it can reach the water. And so this actually does have roots that go out into the water, and it's just such a spectacular plant. It really sets everything off, whether you're over across the pond, whether you're standing right over it. One of my favorite native large shrubs, small trees, depending on how you look at it, is the Aesculus pavia, which is the red buckeye. It's called the red buckeye because, I don't know, maybe the red flowers. Absolutely beautiful, up close and from distance, beautiful red flowers with like an orange to yellow throat. But again, because we have so many rocks here, I planted this thing actually as I was building this wall, and I built this wall 4 years ago, 5 years ago now, and I stuck, back then it was a 3/4 inch trunk, and I crammed it into the rocks and then stacked rocks over it. It didn't like that, it did almost die, but it survived. And so now this tree, it actually creates some overhanging shade, but casts no real shade in the winter. Again, so we can have winter sun, deciduous shade, a cool environment, a cool microclimate in the summer. Absolutely luxuriant plant. These blooms are beautiful. I'm not sure if they clash or if it's just perfect, but it goes with that emperor Japanese maple there. What would you say, Jim? Would you say that?
Oh, it looks great.
It looks good. I'm actually...
Yeah, red is a difficult color in the garden. It just always is. Red. I love red individually sometimes, and then sometimes it clashes, but then it looks just great here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Eventually these two will come together like this, the Japanese maple and the red Buckeye, as an entrance for this gazebo pagoda deck thing.
Right. I think you guys can see back here in the background, Jeremy has gotten quite a bit done on the stone project that we will have an upcoming video on. This is a juniper called All Gold, and I have a video on my channel for it. This is just 5 plants, you said?
Yeah.
Covering this entire bank.
This is actually the first 5 Juniperus Conferta All Gold that Plant Delight sold, and I think this came out in 2012, I think, is when they first rolled off Tony's assembly line, and I had to have the first 5 because it's just an incredible plant.
It is, it is really. Every time I see this anywhere in the landscape, it's just absolutely amazing. And I like Blue Pacific too. So honestly better ground cover plants than like a blue rug, which is more typical, which is more typically used. The star of the show in your landscape today is your agave avatifolia, which I did a video on planting one the other day. So I look forward to 10 years from now when mine starts doing this. So you want to talk about it?
Yeah, this agave ovatifolia, which means oval leaf. This has been here 10 years from one of the famous Plant Delight's 1-quart pots. Yeah. And here it is today. Now, this flower stalk was not visible 4 days ago. It was actually still down in the plant, and now it is about 3 feet extended from the plant. And the way that this works, agave ovatifolia, it does not offset in its whole life.
Means it doesn't make pups.
Yeah, it doesn't run, doesn't make more of itself from the ground. And so when an agave flowers, this rosette will die. Right now, this giant flower stalk, which when it's fully extended, it'll actually weigh several hundred pounds. I've had to pick these up with a skid steer before, and I know it's heavy. That actually is all coming from the storage in the plant. It's kind of like a bulb in that sense, like a tulip bulb, is that they bloom from themselves. And that's what's happening. It's going to suck itself dry. You can see the leaf tips are already beginning to die. This will get 15 to 20 feet tall. It'll branch out, flower. Every hummingbird, yellow jacket, and ant in the county will be here to enjoy this event because, again, gallons of sugary nectar will be coming out of these flowers.
Yes, it's in dripping.
We talk about pollinator gardens, and this is actually an incredible pollinator plant. For them, it's worth the 10-year wait. Of course, they're called a century plant. In this climate, since we get about 10 times more rain per year than where they're native, they're more decade plants.
Right.
But this is going to bloom, it'll die, and it'll make a hole big enough, I don't know, to plant another one.
Yeah. What was interesting, when I put the video up and I said they get about 36 by 36 inches, which is about what this one did before it bloomed. Of course, someone in California said, well, they get 5 or 6 feet because they grow longer before they
do, and even within the same species. So there's one over there that's twice as big as this one. There's one at Plant Delights that might bloom this year at Juniper Level Botanic Gardens. It's the clone is Vanzy, which is a tissue cultured clone of ovatifolia, and it's just massive. And it was planted in, I think, 2013 or 14 in a 1-quart pot, and the thing is 6-7 feet across. It's epic, and But yeah, so this is a great xeric plant. I've never had to water this in 10 years, where I've even had to water this juniper once or twice in the very worst droughts. Just a great plant. really pest and disease free for the most part. And here it is, the grand finale, quite literally.
Right, yeah. How long before that is going off, you think?
Usually the flowers will open sometime when it first becomes absolutely unbearably hot. There's something about it. So
right, yeah.
mid-June, this will start to pop open and begin to be the pollinator magnet that it is.
Right, wow.
And then it will die.
And the hummingbirds will be here at that point.
Yeah,
so that's good.
yeah.
Okay, well, thank you guys for following along with the channel, and we'll definitely be back over here to Jeremy's garden. We'll have the video on the stone wall completion here in the next couple weeks, and I definitely want to come back later in the season as other things are happening.
Yeah, there's always something happening here. So.
Okay, nice, awesome. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.